I can understand why Season 3 gets something of a bad reputation. Season 3 of Star Trek just gets this big vitriol from big, huge Trekkie fans, and it's understandable. It really is, especially compared to the juggernaut that was Season 1. How many great episodes, one after another, were just knocking it out of the park again and again. And it was fantastic. It was great to see, to experience them. And then when we finally get around to Season 3, we open with Spock's brain. We enter into some sort of campy science fiction realm, a realm of campy science fiction, pulpy science fiction, if you will. And the pulpy type of stuff is the type of stuff you would see at a drive-in theater, like The Brain That Wouldn't Die, where there's this movie, this classic drive-in movie, where this guy removes this guy's brain and puts it in a jar or something, and hooks a bunch of wires into it, and the brain starts talking, and then the brain tries to take control of other people and convince them to do all sorts of things. This is a very funny, campy little movie. And those types of campy science fiction movies were never based in any sort of reality, any sort of scientific laws, physics. There's some things that you can actually explain and try to think about. It made you think about the politics. It made you think about the ethics, the cultures, and the prime directives. It made you think about physics. It made you think about potentials and all that other good stuff. And Season 3, a lot of these episodes didn't do that. They just had something, and they just threw something in there. Oh, this would be a science fiction-y little concept. And it was. It's a very fun concept. I actually really like Spock's brain. It was a very fun episode. Does it make a lot of sense? No. There's this highly advanced society that kidnaps or goes aboard the Enterprise, and they steal Spock's brain. They just take his brain, and then they install his brain into their highly advanced complex, so that the brain could run their complex, like run the life support, the AC, the electricity, and all of that stuff. The brain would just run everything for them. And it makes you raise your eyebrow, Spock style, and you wonder why the heck don't they just have an AI or something, like many of the other previous episodes did that, where they just had an AI machine run their complex and run the life support, run all that stuff. Why wouldn't they do that? Well, then if they did that, we wouldn't have an episode. So that's why they didn't do that. So you can see that there are a lot of holes for a lot of these episodes, and the holes are for the thinking man. The thinking man thinks about these holes, and then the episode stops making sense, and then it just stops being fun. You can, unfortunately, Star Trek is a thinking man's series. It's a thinking man's idea, and especially early Trek, up to TOS, TNG, and all that. They were very thinking man ideas going on, making you think about what's going on. And that was important. You should think about what's going on. If you don't think about things, if you don't introspect and all that stuff, then the world just stops being as interesting. You're just there. You're just existing. It might be a little bit more easy for you, but thinking is what makes life more entertaining, more meaningful. And unfortunately, we don't have a lot of thinking in Spock's brain and many other episodes besides. Spock's brain was very campy, though. I very much enjoyed the episode. It was very fun. It was very entertaining. The episode that I probably hate in this entire series, like actual hate, would have to be, where's the final one here? The Way to Eden. The final episode of Season 3, The Way to Eden, is probably my most hated episode in this entire series. It's about space hippies doing space hippie things, and it was very irritating. They were very annoying characters. You might agree with some of their ideas, but they're very stupid acting. They act like a bunch of stupid people, probably because the hippie movement is going on, and maybe people were just irritated with them. I don't know what they were trying to say or what they were trying to do here, but they really made these characters come off as extremely unlikable. They made them come off as extremely unintelligent, and they're supposed to be intelligent. They're supposed to be intelligent people who just see a different way to live life, and yet the way that they act in this, they act like a bunch of spoiled little brats. It was very irritating. I didn't like them one bit, not at all. Chekhov has something to do with one of the hippies. One of them used to be somebody who went to the academy with him, so Chekhov gets to have a little bit of a dynamic with that, but it's just too little. They just did too little with this episode, and they just put through too much hippie stuff in there, and I can appreciate the story complex idea. They're going to a planet called Eden, and when they get there, they realize the plants, the fruits, everything is poisonous and acidic to the human body, so anybody who sets foot on the planet will die. That's why it hasn't been touched by anybody, because nobody can touch this planet. It's not suitable for life. And so it's a funny little episode, but I did not care for it. It's the least liked of the entire series. I like Spock in it, obviously. I like Kirk in it, obviously. Spock, Kirk, and McCoy are my top 3 favorite characters, probably because they're the top 3 characters that they used throughout the entire series. Spock's the most logical, McCoy's the most emotional, and Kirk has to balance both of these characters' dynamics in himself and his own decision-making. And we also get a bunch of Scotty episodes. Starting with Season 2 onwards, we get a lot of episodes with Scotty having a bigger role in the series. He has quite a bit to do in Season 3, and I liked that. Scotty is a very good character, and he was severely underused in Season 1. He would often just be that guy, Captain, I need 43 minutes. I have to have 43 minutes. I can't change the laws of physics, sir. I've got to have 43 minutes. And that's all he was doing. He was basically saying, alright, I could have it done in 2 hours for you. And Kirk would say, you've got 1. And Scotty would say, I cannot go any faster, Captain. I could do it in an hour and a half, but not anymore. They just negotiated time, basically. And that's all Scotty would do in Season 1. It was very, very sad. So when he started to actually show some competency and command of the starship and knowing everything about it second only to Kirk, that was very good. I got to see a lot more of Scotty in Seasons 2 and 3, and that was very, very good. Season 3 overall isn't as bad as people say. It's just not as cerebral. But there are a lot of entertaining episodes. The Thalian Web is probably one of my favorites. The Thalian Web gave me a lot of similarities to a horror movie called Event Horizon. In the movie Event Horizon, I may have to review that someday again. I've seen the movie years ago. I have it. I should probably rewatch it and revisit it so I can talk about it again. But in Event Horizon, a starship goes to respond to a signal from another starship, the Event Horizon. And when they get there, they find that everybody aboard is dead. They killed themselves, or they killed each other. And it's inconceivable what happened to these people. Everybody just lost their minds somehow. And that's very much what happens in the Thalian Web. The Enterprise responds to a distress call to one of the ships, and they go onto this ship and they find that there's nobody left alive on board. They just find an entire sea of corpses, and they see it looks like mutiny everywhere. People who took each other out, who fought each other, who just turned on each other, or turned on themselves. So just everybody died. And nobody could explain what happened onto this ship. It's just some sort of weird space madness, essentially. And they don't get too much deeper than that. It's just space madness in this area of space. There's a dimensional reality warping thing going on in this one area of space, and it's causing everybody to lose their minds. So one by one, people in the Enterprise start to become violently mad and start attacking each other. Chekhov was the first one to go crazy and fight the other members of the crew until he was subdued, and then McCoy has to synthesize some sort of cure to control everybody's nerves and reactions and all that stuff. But I liked it. The Thalian Web was a fantastic episode, and I wish we got more episodes like it. There were a lot of horror moments in Star Trek, and I can understand why the lure of horror when it comes to space exploration is a strong one. Space is terrifying. You are out there alone in a sea of black, peppered by little bright little stars that are so far away you could never get to them unless you go into warp for a very long time. And it's like being out to sea. If you are afraid of the open ocean, and you go out on a boat, like say like a 1600s frigate. You're on a 1600s frigate. You go out into open ocean and you do a big 360 turn. You're up in the crow's nest, and you do a 360 turn in every direction, and you see nothing. No islands, just a sea of blue. No markers, no landmarks, no nothing. It would be very hard not to control your feeling of fear. The unknown in that area, not knowing which direction you're going, is very, very scary. And the lure of space horror in this type of aspect, going and encountering all sorts of strange alien life forms, beings comprised of pure energy, being unable to be understood by the Enterprise crew, and then people get attacked by strange attacks and strange space madness. There's a lot of episodes like that. I loved it. I would love to see a space horror type of series, not unlike, and not Alien, okay? Alien is space horror, obviously, but more on the lines of Star Trek. An episode of the week that doesn't really carry itself on into the next episode, except for minor little things, like in Season 2, Kirk mentions the Cobra Maneuver, which is a Season 1 episode, and that's really all the continuity there was. He just mentions the Cobra Maneuver. And I would like a space horror-themed series, kind of like Star Trek TOS, where they go out and they encounter something scary every single episode. It's just some different fear. They go out and see some different cosmic horror thing going on. And it would be fantastic just to have a 50 to 60 minute episode broaching those topics every single week or month or whatever you want to release these episodes as. But make it like maybe a 16 to 20 episode season, and then just do it, man. It would be awesome. It'd be a great idea. Star Trek TOS is done, and now I'm going to go through the movies again and rewatch the first 6. I'm not going to watch the TNG movies. I'm going to wait until I see TNG to rewatch the TNG movies. I've seen all of the Star Trek movies. I've seen all the TNG movies, all of the TOS movies, but I'm going to rewatch the TOS movies just to refresh my mind now that I have a new perspective on the series. Now that I've actually seen the series, I can actually go in and rewatch those Star Trek movies and actually appreciate them better and see maybe if I could like them a little bit more than I did previously. Or maybe some of the movies that I liked, I may not like as much now that I know how they were originally told. We'll see.